It is the No Pulp podcast, the final episode of the 2021-2022 school year. I'm Tyler Melito, Jared Johnston, Jordan Leonard, who lost a bet to the other two producers. Jordan, you're Brooklyn Nets, man.
Yeah, and they didn't even win a game,
They didn't win a game, bro.
It was bad. It was bad.
You're going to have to wear that Romeo Langford jersey for the entire show. Jared, thank you as always for doing your hair. It looks great. Guys, NFL draft's behind us. That was a great pod last week. This week, it's time to talk a little college lacrosse. Postseason is about to start for the women's lacrosse. The ACC tournament starts today, or actually started yesterday. The men's finale to the regular season is this weekend. But before we get into some blind resumes, Jordan, I know you have some blind resumes for Jared and I to try to figure out. We should probably explain how these teams get into the tournament. Do you know, Jared?
Yeah, for the men's team,
I want to tee you up. I want to see how you get it.
You're going to tee me up. Okay. Yeah. Well, the men's teams, of course, they pretty much have at-large bids for the most part. Syracuse, that's how they got in last year. Obviously,
not this year.
For Syracuse, not this year. But as far as I know, I would assume there's some conference tournaments. I don't think that carries much weight with the ACC, but there should be.
Here's the crazy thing. There is no ACC tournament anymore. That's been after 2019. COVID wiped it out, obviously, because there's no tournament. 2021, they do it. They're not doing it this year. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 automatic qualifiers. That's who it's going to be. And then the rest are at-large bids. There's going to be about 7 or so, 6 or 7. Inside Lacrosse has 17, so it looks like, it's going to be 17 at-large bids. Or 17 total teams. So 7 at-large, 10 automatic qualifiers. And there's no ACC. So that's how Syracuse is out of the contention, because they can't win the tournament. Sucks for Gary Gates' team.
Also way below 500.
Also way below 500. No one want to see him. On the women's side, it's a little bit different. They've actually expanded the tournament field to 29 teams. There are some automatic qualifiers by winning your conference tournament, but then the rest are at-large bids, and the top 3 teams get a first-round bye. So odds on there, it's going to be North Carolina, it's going to be BC, and probably one of Maryland, Northwestern, and Syracuse to get the first-round bye. But hopefully that all made sense. It's a whole process. The NCAA has it all laid out, and surprisingly, it's actually pretty simple to understand. And we know the NCAA, they're impossible to figure out. Shout out Mark Emmert. All right, valid. Jordan, let's get into these blind resumes, man. Why don't you walk us through how we're going to do this, and then we'll go from there.
So the way the blind resume game works is the producer going to put a graphic up there. We're going to read out the team's record, what their record is versus the top 25. We're going to talk about whether they should be a tournament team, how high of a seed they should be, if they can make a run, and then if you guys have any guesses for what team it is, we're going to guess. If not, we're going to reveal the team, and then we're going to discuss further.
So what I'm hearing is I should close my Inside Lacrosse standings, and so I don't know what the team's records are right now?
You should probably close. Maybe have it don't have the tab up.
I'll put it on a different tab. I'll put it on a different tab.
Yeah.
So I don't cheat, because I do want to beat Jared. Let's be real.
I don't have anything up right now, so I'm just diving to GLE, so let's go.
It'll be interesting.
Okay. You also are right next to Jordan. You can just see his computer.
I don't have him up here.
I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
Let's get the first graphic up. So we got team is 13-2 and 3-1 against ranked opponents. Keep in mind that's the top 20. So 3-1 against the top
conference.
That's not conference. That's 13-2 overall.
Okay.
And 3-1 throughout the season against ranked teams.
So the 3-1, they could have beaten a team that was ranked 20th that's no longer ranked.
Yes.
All right. Just want to make sure
they were ranked at the time of victory, and this is men's lacrosse too.
Okay. All right. So there's a men's lacrosse team.
So is this a tournament team, Tyler?
I would say so. I'm assuming right now, given the dynamics of college lacrosse, that they're not a top 10 seed right now, or at least they're close to the top 10. They're probably, if they're 13-2, they're probably pretty good, which means they're probably going to get an automatic qualifying bid. It's definitely not any of the ACC teams. I can tell you that right now, just knowing the records. I would say they're a team, and they're probably a tournament team, and they're probably one that could make a little noise.
Jared?
Are we supposed to guess now, or are we just talking?
Do you think they're a tournament team?
Yeah. I mean, you got to look at that. I was like, hey, if that was a conference record, that'd be a bit weird. But obviously, it's the top 25 rankings against the teams. So, I think of teams that obviously aren't in the ACC, I look to Big East schools, and I would guess it would be like a Georgetown team, something like that. A team that
Georgetown's a good guess. I don't know if
I don't know how they've done this year, but I would guess that. The only
Georgetown
other team I knew that had like an upset was like Richmond against
right.
Maryland or Duke or whichever it was. So.
Jacksonville had a big upset loss early
also.
in the year. That was
They were beat
Carolina?
Duke.
They were up.
They beat
They were
Duke.
close.
That was Duke.
Jacksonville beat Duke. They're still in the top 25 right now.
Yeah,
But
too.
I don't know if Jacksonville. I don't know if they have more than 2 losses. I don't know if Georgetown has more than 2 losses. That's where I'm tossing out. I think it's one of Jacksonville or Georgetown.
Any guesses, Jared? Jacksonville, Georgetown?
I'll still take. I said Georgetown, but I'll just take Jacksonville because I'm from Florida. So.
All right, I'll go with you on Jacksonville.
Let's see it.
Oh,
It is Jacksonville.
Wait, Jacksonville's ranked 8th.
Oh,
They
wow.
are.
Okay,
13-2. They beat
I gotta look
Duke.
at this.
That's
They beat
insane.
Duke earlier this year, and they've played a couple more teams. I don't know exactly.
Lost to Hopkins in Utah. That's
Hopkins,
interesting.
Utah. Okay.
So Hopkins this year, they've kind of been up and down. So that's not a bad loss. Like Hopkins is 6-8, but they've played well against certain teams. Like they lost 15-10 to North Carolina. They lost to Virginia. I mean, their losses are against good teams outside of Delaware. I mean, is even Delaware? Yeah,
Hopkins
Delaware's not great.
was ranked at the time that they lost to as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
so 'cause
so-
that was the first game of the season. So there's always a lot of expectations with Hopkins, and then they fall off. Utah, that's a team that's coming on the up and up. That coaching staff, by the way, Utah, Syracuse was playing last year, and it's insane. So their head coach, I forget his first name, but it's Holman. His son plays in the Premier Lacrosse League, Marcus Holman. He's on the staff, and then he's also brought in 2 of the other teammates on the staff. So that's just a pro-filled staff in Utah, and they got something brewing out there. That Utah team is going to be looking out. That's not a bad loss by any stretch. And then looking at the rest of Jacksonville's games, I mean, the issue is they play in a really poor conference.
They do.
Also, though, shout out John Galloway, head coach of Jacksonville, Syracuse grad, played
There you go.
goalie for Syracuse for 4 years, just retired from pro lacrosse. So, I now that Syracuse is out of it, I kind of want to root for Jacksonville.
And you look at 2 of the wins against Duke and Denver are both on the road too. So
That's
it's
a
not
big
like they're
plus.
only winning at home. So when you come to the NCAA tournament time, they're not scared to go on the road or a neutral site and get a big victory as well.
That is for sure. And I think the thing with Jacksonville too, they've been the surprise team of the season. After they beat Duke, everyone's like, oh, it's Jacksonville for real. And then they just kept winning and winning and winning. And I don't see why not. Why they can't at least, depending on how the draw works out, get to the second weekend, maybe even pull off an upset in the tournament, even though they are the number 8 team in the country.
I would agree. Let's get the second team up there now. Let's see. So we got 6-4. So we're bordering. They'll probably get to the end of the season with the 500 record that you have to be eligible. But they're 3-4 against ranked teams. So they have the quantity there. They have 7 ranked teams, but they're only 3-4. So they have a losing record against them. What do you think, Jared?
How have they only played 10 games? That's what's stumping me.
That's a good question.
COVID?
I don't know. Well,
I haven't heard many COVID pauses, so.
maybe they have. They might have a couple games this week, because I know Syracuse has the break, a whole week break against Notre Dame, but there's a couple teams that have 2 games.
Yeah, you might be right
week.
on that one. But Syracuse has already played. This will be their 14th game. They're not playing 4 games in the span of 2 weeks.
I would have no idea where I'm going with this then. The only team that I would think of, because I think of ACC, is besides Syracuse, that was terrible, obviously. I know Duke lost a lot of its games against ranked opponents, but that's not even close because I'm sure they
Carolina?
They had to have played more than 10 games.
Well, you would think it has to be an ACC team
because of all those ranked games.
Well, the Big Ten has some. The Big Ten has Maryland and Rutgers, but I don't think they have the quantity of top 25 teams for it to get 7 games against ranked opponents.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's like, you would think this is an ACC team. Put that on a bumper sticker for Jordan Leonard. Yeah, I feel like it has to be an ACC team. We know it's not Syracuse. We know it's not Virginia, so which makes it one of Notre Dame, Duke, and Carolina. And if that's the case, that means I think they're all going to be in the NCAA tournament just because of the pedigree. And the ACC is the toughest conference in all of college lacrosse. Yeah, sure, Syracuse has been horrible this season, but they still are one of the best teams in the country from the standpoint of they have the talent. It's just not been their year. So I think on that alone, there's not going to be. Here's the issue for the ACC. because there is not an automatic qualifier, the 4 teams are going to have to earn an at-large bid.
But they'll earn it.
They will earn it, but it's just a matter of.
I feel like if you're above 500 in the ACC, you have a really good chance of getting an at-large bid. It's easily the best conference in men's lacrosse.
So it's going to be either Notre Dame, Duke, or Carolina. I think that's pretty obvious. And I put a 4 fingers and here's 3. Who do you think it is?
I'd go Duke.
You go Duke?
I'm feeling Duke. I would go Duke or Notre Dame.
I would go Carolina or Notre Dame. I feel like Duke might have.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
Notre
So
Dame.
it is Notre Dame.
Okay,
so notice how there's
6
6
in the country.
Notice how there's 6 in the country
Get
at 6 and
outta here,
4.
bro.
Notre Dame.
6 in the country at 6 and 4. They only lost to Maryland by 2.
How many games do they have left?
They have a game.
They have 2.
They have
Syracuse
2.
and Duke.
So Syracuse this
So they
week
just
and then
scheduled
Duke
less
next week.
non-cons.
Yes.
Yeah, which
They only had their non-con schedule. Their non-con schedule was Detroit Mercy, Georgetown, Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan, and then
Marquette.
ACC play.
And Marquette.
Oh, and Marquette midseason.
Well, that's the thing too.
They got
You have to-
ravaged by the Big Ten.
Right, that's the
They
thing
did.
for Notre Dame. That's why they're kind of in this spot, is the fact that they played Georgetown, Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan, and Marquette.
That's why they have
all
7
of
games
whom-
against top 25 teams right there.
Maryland's number 1 in the country.
Georgetown's 2.
Georgetown's 2.
Ohio State's
Ohio
now
State's
11.
10. The 10 are,
Yeah, 11.
depending on who you
USI
look
is,
at.
yeah.
Michigan was ranked for a while. Marquette was up there. Michigan's fallen off a cliff. But, yeah, I think for Notre Dame, but here's the thing, too. None of their ranked losses came against ACC teams except for Virginia. So that's a big plus, I think, for them. The fact that they've beaten up on Notre Dame, or North Carolina and Duke, 2 teams who you expect to be there.
But I'd say you expect those teams to be there, but objectively, a team like Maryland has been better than all these ACC teams.
Oh, Maryland's winning the tournament.
Maryland's proven its pedigree. Georgetown's a team that's obviously not like a Duke or UNC that has the talent but hasn't put it together.
Ohio State's been a surprise this year, I think, being a fairly younger program. And they lost to Maryland by 2. Pat Cavanaugh's had he's had a worse season than he did last year, and he's still playing pretty well, pretty consistent. 20 goals, 29 assists on the year. I think this is a Notre Dame team who will make the tournament, and depending on how their draw is set up, they could get to the quarterfinals, maybe even to Memorial Day weekend and playing in the semifinals, assuming they don't have to have a bad matchup. Like if they play Maryland in the second round, yeah, it's gonna suck. But
I mean, I'm pretty impressed on how they only lost by 2 to Maryland. Maryland is undefeated on the season. They absolutely destroyed
Maryland's had
opponents.
some close games. That's the weird thing.
They blew out number 3 Rutgers though, and I know nobody is like a big Rutgers, but they're number 3 in the country.
Here's looking at Maryland's schedule, and hopefully they're not a blind wrestling team. They shouldn't be. Maryland's season's done, by the way. They have no more games. They played their last game. They beat Notre Dame by 2, Syracuse by 4. And other than that, they blew out the Big Ten. So it's interesting. That proves the point of the ACC is the toughest conference. So that could be the thing that people can point to, like, oh, Maryland, they could be on upset alert in the NCAA tournament if they have to play multiple ACC teams, because eventually it's going to catch up to them.
I think Notre Dame has the best chance of upsetting Maryland because they're
over Virginia, who beat them in the national championship last season.
I would say that because they have the top 10 defense. The Notre Dame only gives up like 9 goals a game. Maryland leads the country in goals per game at over 18. But their goalie, was it Liam Entenmann?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. You got to outscore. You got to outscore the other team. Liam Entenmann can be as good as he wants to be, but at the end of the day, Wisnowski's going to catch the ball in the slot. That team's going to cycle the ball around and get switches that you want to get, and really just dislodge your defense.
I like to point out Liam Griffin was just in my ear, our executive producer. He's like, people forget Notre Dame or Syracuse lost to Maryland by 4. I just said that, buddy. Come on, listen to the show. Come on. All right, let's move on to the next team because I'm having fun here, and let's
get another resume up there.
2 more men, 4 women's teams. That should be fun.
Let's get another resume up there. So we got 9-4, 3-3 against ranked opponents.
9-4, 3-3 against ranked opponents.
So 3 of their 4 losses are against ranked opponents. So
which
you
is
would
good.
think no bad losses, unless the 4th loss is bad.
Extremely
But
bad.
1 bad loss, if anything. 9-4, 3-3 against ranked opponents.
UNC.
That's the thing.
I'm not sure though. I think they have more losses, but
that's the thing. Is like they played a lot of ranked opponents once again. So does that mean they're in the ACC or the Big Ten? But once again, who really knows? 9-4 is compelling. We're just talking about Notre Dame, who is what, 6-4?
yeah.
So they've definitely played more. They've given the selection committee more to show, more to look at.
Most that's a Virginia team.
Virginia definitely does not have 4 losses.
I don't
No
know how many
chance.
losses they have. I didn't think they have more than like 2 or 3, but they obviously had their one unranked against Richmond.
Right. That's a bad loss.
Mm-hmm.
But Virginia does not have 4 losses. No chance in hell.
I still got UNC.
How
You think UNC?
high would you guys say, assuming they got into the tournament, how high would you seed them? 9-4, 3-3
I would
against ranked.
personally, although Notre Dame, we were saying they're in the ACC, and I was just looking at the rankings. Notre Dame's the highest ranked team other than Virginia in the ACC. They're the highest ranked out of Notre Dame, Duke, and UNC. I would put this team around Notre Dame, so maybe in that 5 to 9 range. I mean, Jacksonville was 8, so we know that's not them. And Jacksonville was what, 13-2, 14-2.
Yeah.
So I would put them in that range. That's the weirdest thing about this whole college lacrosse thing. There's not a standard. Everyone plays this many games, which I think that needs to change very soon because we're looking at it now. This is a team who could be very well be ranked number 7 in the country. They could be ranked number 18 in the country just based off where they play, even though they play more games.
Okay, so we got any final guesses?
I'm stumped here. Is it? It's not an ACC. I don't think they would. Knowing Liam Griffin, he would not go 2 ACC teams.
You say knowing Liam Griffin.
Knowing Liam Griffin.
I don't think you can never know what Liam Griffin's going to do.
Well, he's the most unpredictable
is
man on
valid.
the planet. I think this might be one of the Ivy League teams. This might be a sneaker. It might be like Harvard or Brown.
Well, I mean, Cornell's out there.
Or Cornell. Yeah, I mean, Cornell's played a few ranked teams, too.
I
Cornell
don't think
would
they
be
played
interesting.
enough, though.
Cornell was ranked 4th in the country. Yeah. Cornell's not a bad guess. Maybe it's Harvard. I'll go
stick
Harvard.
with UNC.
What do we got?
All right, well, we got the Ivy League. Ranked 5th. Yeah, so we're close there. I'm now curious, where is Harvard ranked? Harvard's ranked 12th, 8-3. All right, so I was close. Brown's an interesting one because they're number 5, has it set right there, number 5 in the country. They lost to UNC, they lost to UMass, they lost to Princeton, they lost to Harvard. Those are not great losses. Like UMass is okay, right?
UMass is a bad loss.
UMass is a pretty bad loss, but
They did beat Penn.
they did beat Penn at Penn, which is a tough place to play.
They
Harvard's
beat Yale as well.
right, and Yale's number 9 in the country. Harvard's
And
number 12.
Cornell.
Cornell's number 14. Princeton's number 7. God, the Ivy League.
I feel like there's
Actually,
more
Jordan
stock
said
in
that
their
first,
losses than their wins in some
I mean,
respects.
I that's where I draw to first. But looking at someone like Vermont, they might not have been the same team as we thought they were going into the year, but they're still in the contention to make in the tournament. So Vermont's not bad. Not a bad win at all.
I mean, you look at
Cornell,
the Harvard,
Yale,
the
Penn.
Harvard and North Carolina loss are also on the road. So
that certainly
they're taking
helps
care
them.
of business at home. I mean, North Carolina is a really good ACC team. Harvard was ranked 15th at the time they lost. They lost by 1.
And Harvard's now higher up in the rankings. They keep moving up. Penn has stayed at 13. Cornell has kind of dropped off a bit, but they're
I
still
think
top
Princeton's
15.
the tough loss because it's at home and you lose by 8.
Yeah, but
Princeton's
at
still
that
a
point,
really-
they were also rounding out 2 losses before that. That was their 3-game win streak before they bounced back against Yale, Cornell, and of course.
And they played 3 games in the span of about 10 days, which is not easy. And Princeton, they were ranked number 3 until a recent loss. They lost what? They lost their last game to Harvard. So
The Ivy League men's lacrosse, man. Ivy League men's lacrosse.
here's the thing with the
Wow.
Ivy League. Everyone's like, oh my God, the Ivy League's so good this year. And that's true. They've played very well. But would I be surprised if we see a lot of the Ivy League teams get bounced early in the NCAA tournament? Not at all. I would
Big
not
Ten
be surprised at all.
basketball.
Kind of like Big Ten basketball, exactly. Because they don't play that caliber. Like, I think anyone in the Big Ten could win against the Ivy League. Any of the 4 ACC teams that are going to make the tournament could beat the Ivy League teams. Maybe one gets past the second round, but I don't think we're going to be seeing 2 or 3 teams in the quarterfinals from the Ivy League, because eventually it's just going to catch up with them, like we mentioned.
It would be interesting to see how the styles of play differ, because I'm not making assumptions about the Ivy League because I don't watch Ivy League lacrosse, but like watching Notre Dame and some of the ACC games, they're very physical games.
They are.
And I wonder if the Ivy League teams can stand up to the physicality, because you watched, I mean, Syracuse is obviously 4-9. Cornell came into the Dome, and Syracuse was pretty dominant most of the game.
Syracuse blew that game at the end.
Exactly. So you wonder how, and Cornell's a really good Ivy League team. Penn, Brown, you got all of them. You wonder how they can match up against the ACC, like with the different styles of play.
Yeah.
I just saw a quote up there that said, Ivy League men's lacrosse, Jordan Leonard, and my reaction was, wow. I don't even remember saying wow, so. Don't know if I was misquoted, but.
We should probably keep moving on because we're already 20 minutes in and we got a lot to talk about.
Let's get the next resume.
Let's do a little more speed around here. We'll
go more speed. So 8-3 and then 2-2 against ranked opponents. Let's just go. Who do you? What? Like, how high would you go with these team? This team.
Given how, I think this is going to be the one that's like extremely underrated. So I would say that they should be probably in the top 10 given the rest of the teams we've talked about today. But I would not be surprised if this team is like 13th, 15th.
You said Liam Griffin wouldn't repeat conferences. I'm still thinking Ivy, so.
You think of the Ivy?
Yeah.
All right.
Do we have an Ivy League school?
I'm going Cornell.
It's Utah out west.
I told you.
One of the few out west teams.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Utah is a young program. They're like second or third season as a D1 team, and they've played well. They lost to Denver by 1. Yeah, they got blown out by Georgetown and they lost to UMBC, but they're one of the few teams to beat Jacksonville this year. They beat Vermont. The issue is they are playing in a conference that doesn't really boast high-quality competition necessarily, outside of a couple teams.
They are almost ranked though. So you look at the polls, and the polls give them some respect.
Yeah, they've been around being ranked for most of the season.
Well, they've been around being ranked because they've beaten most of their top-ranked opponents until recently. And then they get to just stack up on those easy victories.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Looking at the bottom, I don't think I would put them over North Carolina or Denver, but I would put Utah over St. Joe's. I'd put Utah over Richmond. I'd even consider putting them over BU and Army. I would consider it at least. Maybe not Army, but BU, definitely. Especially if Utah can win their conference tournament.
I mean, if Utah wins their conference tournament, they're going to be rated higher.
They're automatically in.
And that would boost their seed tenfold.
Oh, for sure.
Because if you win, I mean, obviously they didn't play as many games against ranked opponents, but they beat Vermont, who was in the top 25 when they played them. They lost to Denver by 1. Georgetown, they're obviously number 2 in the nation, so that's kind of an outlier there. But if they win the A-Sun, which is actually what they're in men's lacrosse, I mean, with their record, with what it would be, it would probably tack on at least a win or 2. They'd have 10 wins. You'd have to put them at least in the middle of the pack in the rankings.
Well, Utah is the favorite to win the A-Sun.
Not shocking.
That holds any merit.
I don't know.
According to Inside Lacrosse, their bracketology, they're like, we think Utah's going to win. So there's that. All right, let's move on to some women's teams from there with similar blind resume type of
Similar blind resumes. Let's get that first resume up there. 15-2,
both
but
losses
1-2 against ranked opponents.
I mean, this team's in easily.
This team's in just by the sheer fact that they have 15 victories.
Question is,
not an ACC team.
Definitely not an ACC team because, well, it's not Carolina. We know that. Syracuse is not.
I would think a Northwestern team, but I would have thought they would have played more ranked opponents.
I think
they probably played BC. They
definitely played BC. They definitely played Syracuse. They probably would have.
They have to have more than that.
Right.
So.
The thing with this is, do they get penalized? Because they're definitely not going to be a top 3 team. We know it's not BC, Syracuse, or UNC. Do they get penalized because 14 of their wins were against non-ranked teams?
I mean, you said they expanded the field, so.
They did expand the field, so they're going to be in regardless.
I feel like this is like a Gonzaga. I mean, not Gonzaga's non-con, but like an example of Gonzaga in basketball playing all these poor teams. St. Mary's is obviously decent. San Francisco was decent this year, but they don't play the hard non-conference schedule. They have a win against a ranked team. They don't play many ranked teams, but they don't like crap on them too much. Like they don't put them all the way at the bottom of the rankings because their schedule wasn't as hard.
Right.
They still won the games.
Right. So they'll probably be in the top 15 or so.
I would go with that. Let's see who we got.
Yeah,
who we got?
Because I don't know. I
UMass.
was going to say
Wasn't gonna get
UMass
that.
because I knew they were up there
UMass.
for a while. I was actually thinking Rutgers, but maybe we'll see later. I mean,
Rutgers,
UMass,
baby.
they got blown out by Boston College.
Oh, well, that's Boston College.
And then they lost to UConn, which I guess was ranked at the time. UConn's ranked? Yeah, I guess so. UConn's ranked 14th. So yeah, Rutgers 14 and I'm looking at Rutgers. Sorry.
I mean,
Wrong
UMass
school.
has 2 40-plus goal scorers on the roster, so
That
they
is-
got some firepower. And those are 2 seniors. They got experience.
Well, here's the thing with that too, though, Jordan. Every team has multiple 30-plus goal scorers. 40 is very hard to do. I mean, they have 2 players that have 40-plus goals, and then they got another player who's got Alex Finn, 29 goals, 19 assists, so it's very even in that point. But looking at some of we're looking at the wins. Davidson, okay. St. Joe's, okay. LaSalle, Richmond, GW, George Mason, VCU, DeQuince, St. Bonnie's. Like, they're not.
Duquesne.
Sorry.
Even I know that.
Vanderbilt, I didn't know Vanderbilt had a lacrosse team.
I would not be very high just based on their schedule. Like, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, they've won like 10-plus games in a row since the UConn loss.
They're gonna fall off eventually. And like 13 seems right, but I would not be surprised if they get dropped a little lower.
Yeah, I wouldn't be high once they got into the tournament either, based on their strength of schedule. Because when you get into the tournament, no matter what you're ranked, every team is good. So, I mean, not playing the hard strength of schedule is not very beneficial.
Looking at the teams above them, they're not a top 10 team. Looking at the top 10, I would not put UMass in the top 10 for sure. Because the top 10 is pretty dang elite.
It is pretty elite.
Next team. Let's get to the next team.
Let's get to the next team. What do we got? 8-8. 2-8 against ranked opponents. So they're bordering on that 500
I know
record.
who this is.
And
I know
they
this is
have
'cause I
10
did-
games against ranked opponents.
I know who this is because I had to do some research in preview of the ACC tournament for the women's. So, Jared, I'll let you say your spiel, and then we'll get to it.
I don't really have a spiel. I'm assuming you're saying this is like Pitt women's lacrosse because that's the only team I can think of that was new and really lost a ton. I mean,
This is Virginia. Yeah.
And
UVA. Currently 16th in the country. They play Syracuse tonight, 7:30, quarterfinals of the ACC tournament. And you look at Virginia's schedule, 2-8 against ranked teams. But let's remember who's in the conference. North Carolina, the number 1 team in the country. Syracuse, number 3 in the country. And Duke, what's Duke right now? They are
Boston
number
College,
7
too.
in the country. BC's not in the conference, are they? No. Oh, BC is in the ACC.
Yeah, BC's in the ACC.
Duh. And BC. Duh. So you play the top 3 teams and number 7. So.
And they played Maryland, who's now in the top 10
Maryland.
too.
So, yeah, is it concerning that they don't have many wins against ranked teams? Yeah. But when you factor in the fact that they're playing 3 of the top 3 teams in the country, and then they played number 4 and number 7.
I feel like being ranked in the top 25 as an 8-8 team that high, at 16, shows that the committee that makes these rankings shows like they have respect for Virginia.
Yeah.
And they have, and I'm going to say goal scorers again, but they have 2 50-plus goal scorers.
Yeah, Ashlyn McGovern and Rachel Clark. Ashlyn McGovern, first team All-ACC. Rachel Clark, all-freshman team for the ACC this year. I mean, they're going to give Syracuse a handful. I know this is no Pulp. We don't talk Syracuse often, but looking at the ACC tournament tonight, it's starting. That Syracuse defense, they are going to have a tough time. They were able to handle them in mid-March, but Sarah Cooper is the best defender on that orange team. She can only guard one of them. So the rest of that defense is going to have to do something to slow down the rest of UVA.
It's going to be interesting too if Virginia can make a run in the ACC tournament. I think that'll definitely boost their seeding too, obviously, because any win you get in the ACC tournament is going to be a top-ranked win.
Right. The issue is for Virginia is that they're playing Syracuse. A win, they're probably in the tournament. A loss, it definitely hurts their chances because they'll be a below 500 team.
I would agree. Let's get that next team up there. Let's see. Who we got next? 10-4, all 4 losses against ranked opponents. I would be interested to see what their 10 wins were because it shows that they don't play well against like top-ranked teams. And Can you go through the tournament, or can you be high in the tournament if you don't beat good opponents?
I was going to say this record shows I will have no idea what this is because that first one, like 0-4 against your only ranked opponents, we know it's not ACC. I mean, I don't get how this team would be in the top 25, but then again, even with the expanded field, it's very top-heavy. It's factual.
Here's the thing with this. Those 4 losses have to be close, or at least like decent. Because if you're going to tell me you have 4 losses, your 4 losses against ranked teams, okay, great, you're beating the teams you're supposed to beat. But when you get into the tournament, all these teams are good. So no one wants to see a team that comes in here and be like, oh yeah, we lost all of our ranked opponents. We shouldn't be here, but here we are. They're like, I also have no clue who this is because I don't know many teams who have 4 losses and they all are against ranked opponents. They're probably the bottom of the top 25.
Who we got? Yale. Okay, so 24 at the bottom of the top 25. They have losses at Boston College, 21-9. Versus home against Notre Dame, 17-10. UConn by 6 they lost, and Stony Brook by 4. So they have top-ranked losses. They're not very close, though, I would say, except for maybe the Stony Brook game they lost by 4. They still have to play Princeton. Is Princeton in the top 25 in the women's, too?
Yes.
They are. So they still have one more top 25 game left.
So let's make it 0-5. No, if they can beat Princeton, I like their chances a lot more. If they lose, I know they expanded the tournament to 29 teams and Yale's 24th. They're not making it. No chance.
No, they're not making it.
No chance.
Not at 10-5.
You can't tell me a 10-5 team who has all 5 losses to ranked teams deserves to be in the tournament. Give me anyone else. Unless they are the number 29 team and they have the fortune of losing to North Carolina in the first round.
And the field is how big now?
29 teams.
So, I mean, who else is there behind them in the top 25?
Well, that's the issue. There's only one other team in the top 25. That's Johns Hopkins, who moved up. After that, like Inside Lacrosse doesn't even have the rest. I feel like Inside Lacrosse should go to 30.
I feel like at that point, though, it's not really a discussion to say that it's just going to get knocked out of the tournament.
Right. I think and if they lose early on in their conference tournament, that's even worse for Yale. That's all I'll say. I have no faith in Yale.
I think they're just happy to be there.
They are happy to be there. Right,
let's get the last team up here.
We got 2 more, buddy.
We do?
Math, right? Oh no, we have 1 more. That's on
one
me.
more.
That's on me. That is on me.
10-6, 3-4 against ranked opponents. So that's got to be something of a major conference team, you would think.
I think this is.
I would give more stock in them than Yale because 10-6, they have 3 ranked wins instead of 0.
Same number of
and
ranked
they've
losses.
played 7 games against ranked opponents.
So I also think I know who this is just because I remember their schedule.
Bring up the quote again.
You don't know who this is?
No, I don't know.
You don't know? Here's the thing with this type of record, because it's so close. Here's the college lacrosse. We've seen in both the men's and women's side, you could have a not great record, be barely above 500, although this is 4 games, that seems like an eternity.
Actually, I think I know where I'm going to go.
Where are you going to go?
University of Florida.
Gators are not that bad. Gators have been very well.
They beat Syracuse.
They beat Syracuse. I don't think the Gators have 4 losses. I'm going to go with a different team that played Syracuse, though. I'm going to go with their first opponent of the year, Stanford. Just because I know that Stanford, they were up there in the rankings early on in the year, and they've been around the top teams. I don't know if they've played enough ranked teams, but I do know they've played Syracuse, which makes me think they've played more ranked teams.
Is it Stanford? It is Stanford.
Take it,
Stanford. Liam. Stanford actually lost 4 of their first 5 games. They lost to Syracuse. They beat Albany by 1. Then they lost to Denver, Richmond, and Virginia, and back in 3 straight games. And then they won on a roll, 4 straight, and they've only lost 2 since.
Yeah, so those losses to Arizona State. Once again, another team I didn't need to have a lacrosse team, but Arizona State's ranked. Colorado is not ranked, which is not a great win or great loss. But Arizona State, that's not a good one. Losing by 7, I get it on the road still. But when you start out the season playing Syracuse, Denver, Richmond, Virginia, all teams who are very good and will be in the tournament, That shows you something. That shows you something that this team, they started out slow, but they've recovered. Can they string along a few more wins and maybe not win the Pac-12, but beat a USC again, beat Arizona State, make it above 500, win some of the games against your in-conference foes that has you saying, okay, we're confident in Stanford. Because right now, 19 in the country, they probably should have won. At least they probably should have won a couple more games. They should have beaten Richmond.
You wonder about in the first half of the schedule when they played at Syracuse, at Richmond, at Virginia, if travel played somewhat of a factor.
Being
and obviously that
West Coast team.
It takes into account going into the NCAA tournament depending on where the games are.
Yeah.
But they've lost all their games that they've lost are on the road except for Denver, and they only scored 6 goals against Denver. And I know Denver's pretty stout on defense,
but that's a lot of miles. Say they traveled. And one quick thing before we get to the last segment: Ashley Humphrey, Darien, Connecticut. I have actually seen her play. 33 goals, 70 assists this year. She is so good. That is Denver's.
I mean, the fact that she has 70 assists.
Right. She
Not bad.
Dominates the ball so well. I from a women's lacrosse standpoint, as a freshman no less, I have not seen many players as good as her.
Should do the 3-woman weave.
She's not doing 3 women. Darien, Connecticut lacrosse is a different breed. That's all I'll say. All right, let's get into the final segment here. That was fun. Some blind resumes. We've eaten up a lot of time, but we got a little name game here. 4 names to talk about. We'll rate the names, and then we'll get into a quick little synopsis of these teams. So the first name for you, from Bucknell Men's Lacrosse, Dutch Furlong. Look at that headshot. Dutch looks like a boss. 35 goals, 18 assists for Bucknell. And this is a Bucknell team, mind you, 9-4 in the year, 3-4 in conference. All losses came against teams who were ranked at the time. So another team that could be in on the NCAA tournament. Maybe they should have been a blind resume. But how do you rate Dutch? How do you rate Dutch?
Dutch Furlong, man, I got to give that at least an 8 out of 10. I mean, that's creativity on the parent side. Where do you get that name? I'm not
Furlong,
being mean.
I want to see what family oranges are. Was it shortened down for something?
It could be Dutch, It could be Dutch.
It could be Dutch. Dutch Furlong.
Is Dutch, I'm gonna.
That's a great name. I mean, a quick thing about Bucknell Men's Lacrosse: they're 10th in the nation in scoring offense and 20th in scoring defense. So we talk about that in basketball, the top 40 in each of offense and defense. They're in the top 20 of offense and defense. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays when assuming they make the tournament, but come tournament time.
For sure. All right, next name. From Robert Morris Men's Lacrosse, a team that's kind of struggled this year, Bo Columbus. I mean, Columbus, first of all, Robert Morris's mascot are the Colonials. So on brand, for sure. Fogo, face-off specialist extraordinaire. Robert Morris, definitely not their year. Got off to a horrible start, losing first 3 games to Duke, Bucknell, and Stony Brook. They've also lost a high point in Utah. We've seen Utah has been up there. This is definitely not the year, but I think Bo Columbus, I'm giving that a 9 out of 10 because it's on brand. He picked the right school for his name.
What do you think, Jared?
I would say that I'm in between Dutch Furlong and Bo Columbus.
Oh, I'm going Bo all day. You don't know Bo. Bo knows.
I'd go Dutch. I think Dutch is a bit better, so I'd go an 8.
They're both pretty Dutch, you got a country, Columbus coming over to the United States. You got that historical feel to them. I would probably go Dutch Furlong because you got Bo is more, I guess, more of a common first name than Dutch. So the first name and last name combined, I guess I would go Dutch Furlong as the better one.
Although draft day just happened in the NFL. Bo Callahan. Hopefully he's not like Bo Callahan.
Hopefully Bo Columbus's friends went to his birthday party. That's all I'll say.
Yes. All right, we got a couple of women's names for you before closing out the show. From Denver Women's Lacrosse. Sorry, I had it written down and then I just couldn't read my own writing. B. Barons. It's just not been my day for names. Duquesne.
B. Barons.
I mean, she has been phenomenal for Denver. And she has been a big factor as to why Denver is number 10 in the country. We got the double Bs. I hope her middle name starts with a B too, so she can just be BBB.
Triple Bs.
Triple Bs, baby.
BBB, Brewster Brockway Bowling, baby.
But B does lead the team in goals, in assists, and in total points. So that's a big plus. I mean, that I think helps her in terms of having her name be a little bit higher on the list. I'll put it at an 8.5 because I do like the BB.
You're a big fan of alliteration.
I do love alliteration.
Alliteration is a good rhetoric tool.
It is a very good rhetoric tool, especially in journalism. And once again, we were talking about Denver a little bit. They lost to BC. They had a bad loss to Colorado, but Denver could make some noise as well.
And Bia Baron's leading the offense, but it's really, for me, it's about the defense. They're 6th in the nation in scoring defense, 8 goals per game. And believe it or not, yes, they play in the Big East. Denver, all the way in Denver, they're still playing in the Big East. That just shows you a little bit about conference alignment in lacrosse.
That's the thing with college lacrosse. The game is growing out west, so maybe in a few years we'll see a little bit more Western conferences. But let's be real, lacrosse is big here on the East Coast.
It is. If Bia Barons is scoring 53 goals in a season, and Denver women's lacrosse is giving up 8 goals per game, I mean, you got a star on the offensive side. You got a good defense. That's a good formula for making a run down the stretch.
Yes. Jared, did you have a rating for the name?
I'd go 6.
Go 6. Why 6? That's so low.
I kind of agree.
The
with
alliteration's fine, but it's pretty.
Coming from a guy who has the alliteration, JJ.
Yeah, but my
Jared
name's still
Johnston.
it's not like this. My name's not rare, but it's not like super normal either. But you hear my name, you're not like, oh wow, it's a weird name.
My thing with B was it short for something?
Oh. No, it's just B. Like B, or maybe it's Bia. Maybe we're pronouncing it, but
okay.
I think it's B. But I think our standards were also set a little high with Dutch Furlong and Bo Columbus first. So Bia Barons.
I don't know what the research was like in playing this name game, where we found these names. I don't know if there's a Google search for most obscure names in college lacrosse. But let's get to one more. We got one more before we close out the show. From Georgetown women's lacrosse, Lisbank Campagna. Best one for Jared Johnston. Another Fogo, I guess it's going to be a draw control player. 103 draw controls on the year for Georgetown. Georgetown has not been their year. Let's be real.
It has not been.
Jared, so you're giving this a 10 out of 10?
Let's be real, it's a 10 out of 10.
Why?
DCS.
Why?
No slander to the DCS. First of all, if you're going to encounter a bunch of rare names, you'll see Bea Barons maybe once or twice. You're not going to see Liza Banks or Liza Banks more than once.
Well, you forgot you're adding an A there.
Can you not?
Oh wait, I missed the A. That's on me. That's on me.
And it's Campagna.
I'm just having a bad day with names. Campagna.
Yeah. It's something. I mean, and it's a great name, and that might be the most excitement for Georgetown women's lacrosse all year because they're
making the tournament
7-8 and not a tough schedule at all. No. Either. They lead the conference in turnovers per game. I mean,
they're not like the men. They're not playing like the men.
No, they are not.
Rebuilding year.
They have no goal score. Believe it or not, they have no goal scorer over 30. They have 5 with at least 20, but they have none over 30. Which at this point in the season is a little surprising.
Syracuse we just saw Virginia had 2 over 50.
Yeah.
Syracuse has 3 over 45, I'm pretty sure.
Barring injuries and everything like that, obviously it would be way more. But, they need more free position shots.
Lisbank Campagna, I feel like because I messed up the name, I will bump it up. I was going to be a little low. We'll put it at an 8.
I feel like that has to factor into the rankings, too, if we're talking about crazy names, is can you pronounce it by just looking at it?
Well, I just totally couldn't. Here's what I did. I took it from here and I notes apped it because I didn't want to put I want to put notes on a separate page, and I still misspelled it. I instead of just copy and paste it, I tried to write it out and I forgot the A.
That definitely adds to it. And one name, being a producer, one name that we didn't pick because of Syracuse's schedule, Wheaton Jacobois.
Oh,
that's a great. Everyone would have known what that was,
but
that is a great name that we didn't put on here too. Wheaton Jacobois.
I mean, I think we could have included it. But yeah, any final thoughts, guys, on college lacrosse, the landscape, Syracuse or not? Do you want to give a national championship prediction even?
For both sides?
Yeah, we'll go both sides.
Cool.
And this is going to sound bad because they're the #1 team in the country, but Maryland men's lacrosse. My sister goes to the University of Maryland. They are going to get a national championship. Nobody's competing with them at all this season. They blew out Rutgers, and Liam, our senior producer, hates when I mention Rutgers, but I'm from New Jersey. He just texted me Homer. No, I'm from New Jersey. It's Rutgers. They're third in the country. You can't take that away from them. Maryland men's lacrosse. And then it's going to be interesting.
Their time. Maryland's gotten hosed the last couple of years.
It is. And Logan Wisnauskas is just utterly dominant.
He might be playing better than Jared Bernhardt was last season. Jared Bernhardt won the Tewaaraton.
That is true. And then it'll be interesting, North Carolina, Boston College, and Syracuse, because those are the top three. If I had to pick one, I'll probably go Boston College because of Charlotte North. I'm big on star players.
So you think they'll repeat?
I think they'll repeat because star players show up in the tournament. Logan Wisnauskas, Charlotte North, they'll both get it done for their teams.
Jay?
I'll vary it up on the men's side here. You said, though, could be their time for Maryland, but I think we agreed upon it earlier in the podcast that Maryland's not playing against the best opponents regardless when you look at it at the end of the day. And they can be vulnerable if they run against 2 or 3 ACC opponents. With that, they're not going to play a team like Virginia. Obviously, Notre Dame is up there too, but I don't want to say three-peat. I'm not going to say three-peat.
I can't say three-peat, but I can't say three-peat.
I can't say three-peat.
I don't want to say three-peat.
But if I were to pick a team that would kind of really come up from the depths of its own failures this season, I don't want to pick Duke because I don't think Duke's all there. No. I think Notre Dame's still rebuilding. I think UNC, I would have to choose a shot in the dark because I don't want to pick Virginia, even though they're a really stout team. I would go upset alert, and I'm going to say UNC.
If it's not Maryland, because I think Maryland is the runaway favorite. Do you have a women's pick? Sorry.
Yeah, BC. It has to be BC.
You think they're going to repeat?
What Jordan said, I mean, they're just too good. They just have all the talent around themselves. And you think about a team like Syracuse that finished as a runner-up, but really lost all of its defensive tools to use against a team like that.
They haven't played Emma Ward has not played the entire season. Emma Tyrell's done.
I think even with those scorers, though, it's really tough to hang with a team like BC.
Yeah.
Despite that. So obviously they're just behind the 8 ball with that as well.
Yeah, totally agree. For me, I mean, Virginia, of the top 5 teams, they're the one most likely to upset Maryland.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't want to say three-peat again. So if not Maryland, I'm going to go with Notre Dame. Yeah, 6-4 doesn't look great, but they have the firepower to put up a bunch of goals against anyone. So that'll
Big Kavanaugh guy.
Jake Taylor,
I am a big Pat Kavanaugh guy. His brother retweeted me once, so I'll take it. They got Chris Kavanaugh too, the freshman.
Oh yeah.
I honestly just hope from the men's side we see a couple upsets, just see some fun. Like I would love to see Jacksonville go on a run. I would love to see a team like Ohio State go on a run. Mm-hmm. Teams that you don't really get, just because that's what makes a tournament fun. And then on the women's side, I think it's going to be one of the top 5 teams. I don't think we see anyone below that come in and win it all. So North Carolina, BC, Syracuse, Maryland, Northwestern. Maryland could very well win both the men's and women's tournaments. That's how good they've been playing. BC, I don't think they're going to repeat. I think it's just going to be hard to do. Syracuse, this could finally be their year. They've never won an NCAA tournament.
I don't think so, though.
They've never done it. I don't think they will. I think the injuries will catch up. But what Kayla Trainer has done for this program, she's taken it, I think, she's elevated it slightly. The record might not be the same as it was with Gary Gate. I mean, it's very on par. But I think she has changed the culture, and these girls are buying into what she's doing, and I think that's only just going to grow it. They just need to get more defense.
I would say it's a continuation, though. You think about all the players that come and recruit, and you think game in, game out after pressers, and they always say, they came here for Gary, and they grew up watching Gary, but
they also came watching Trainer.
Kayla Trainer was a product of that.
She's arguably one of the greatest lacrosse players on the women's side of all time.
And with Gary Gate leaving, I mean, she's forged her own legacy on the team. I think you have to wait for the defense to really improve, though.
Right.
Katie Goodale is probably one of the brightest stars in college lacrosse when you think about her as a sophomore. What she's going to do next year when Sarah Cooper's
gone
out the door.
Yeah.
Like, the team has to grow. Right. Once it grows, it's there.
Because
the weapons are already there.
Right. We're saying it with the men's side, like, give this Syracuse team time. Give Gary Gates some time to get his guys. Now, I think you could say that with Kayla Trainer's team, and they're still in contention to win a national championship. You're not saying that with the men's side. So I think I'm going to go Maryland sweep. I think they win both the men's and women's. I think it could happen.
I would take that.
I would not be surprised at all. And I also have the Maryland ties. My mom went there. Although
go Terps.
I hate to. No, I'm not doing that. Sorry, Mom.
Also, random note about the names. Jackson Birtwhistle didn't get an honorable mention.
Yeah. I mean, Burt Whistle's the good part.
Easy first name, but,
Easy first name. Burt Whistle's, I guess, good. But
All right, this is
going
getting
first
off
and
the
last.
rails. This is getting off the rails.
5 goals.
5 goals. All right. Jordan Leonard, Jared Johnston, thank you both so much. Final no
That's a great
pod.
headshot.
That is a great, oh, God. Liam Griffin. I hate you, buddy. I love you at the same time. So, yeah, this is my final on-air appearance ever for Citrus TV, news or sports. That was, I don't know where you found it.
How did they get that in there?
So, I think what happened was that was my Facebook photo for a while. Yeah, that was on Google for a while. That's actually my ID photo for Syracuse University.
I was told you can't put new
I'll
headshots
hold this up so you
Really?
can see it
Well, I think you
twice.
can
Or no, it was the background.
Yeah. So that's that. That was my senior portrait photo in high school, my senior year. I've lost a lot of weight, you could tell.
Nice.
But yeah,
It's a big win.
I will miss you guys as well. I'll miss Citrus TV. Thank you for all the memories. And thank you all for listening to the No Pulp Podcast. It has been a fun run indeed this year. We'll see you in 2023. For Jordan Leonard, Jared Johnston, the rest of the No Pulp crew, I'm Tyler Melito. Enjoy the summer. We'll see you next year.